Hey everyone, welcome to the Real Life Podcast. We're so glad that you're listening or watching. I'm your host, Dale Santrum. I'm here with my amazing co-host, Katie Jones.
Hey, RLP team.
What'd you say?
RLP
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, I didn't hear that.
It's going to catch fire.
Yes, it is.
It will.
Yeah.
If we speak it with enough conviction
do it again.
and confidence. RLP team.
Okay, that was impressive.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So, we are glad you're here. We have a special guest today. This is Kurt. Pastor Kurt works here at Foothills with me, and he's part of our great team here. He is a director of student ministries. So, Kurt, welcome to the podcast.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, it is good to be here.
Finally on the podcast.
Finally on the podcast. He had to wait his turn. I mean, we've had so many amazing guests.
Actually paid. I paid them.
Paid us.
Yes, and it worked. And so we bought a new microphone with his contribution.
There you go.
So, but
we're pumped to have Kurt.
we are
Guys.
because
great insight.
Yeah, and the topic today I think is absolutely essential. That we're going to talk about and feel free to add to this, but we're going to talk about students, but what students wish adults knew about them, about their world, about the culture they live in. I mean, so that is fascinating.
Yeah.
So that's what today's all about.
Yep. And I think it also speaks to the kind of youth pastor that you are. You know, we put out this poll. This was Kurt's idea because we were like, we want to do an episode that has to do with teens. And it was Kurt's idea to be like, why don't we ask the teens what they wish adults knew, which is kind of how you run things. And your slogan is, you can belong before you believe, which I love so much for so many other areas of the church in general. So I think you're just doing a great job. So I'm excited.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So you guys are going to be hearing from specifically FSM students today.
Yeah.
And so...
because we polled them, right?
Yep.
So this is over 2 weeks, middle school and high school groups. As with students, we didn't get as many as we wanted, but we got a bunch, and so it'll be fun to dive into them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I'm going to just go ahead and start with, and these are some statistics that Kurt shared. So it says, FSM battles against consumerism attitudes. The major hurdles include the busyness of youth, 86%, a lack of parental interest is around 41%, breakdown of traditional family structures, that's 31%. So, and then you said, despite these challenges, there's an unwavering belief in the transformative potential of student ministry, especially through deeper involvement and innovative approaches such as mentoring. So, Kurt, before we even get into the responses from the students, I think it would be important to just give people a little background about how you even got into student ministry.
Yeah. So I started youth ministry when I was 17 years old. I was invited to check out, that was literally the words, come check out the middle school ministry by a dear friend of mine. She is a mentor of mine, I would say, like a spiritual mother. She was an older gal at the time and said they needed volunteers, so just come check it out. And I had no younger siblings at the time, so I thought kids were annoying and just no experience, was not at all comfortable with youth. But God had been doing cool things in my life. I'd went on a missions trip, got baptized. And so it just felt like in the mix of all the things, I was like, I'll go just to make this lady happy. I'll check out this middle school ministry. And the rest is history. I mean, I went for 2 weeks and just immediately felt like there was something unique about connecting with middle schoolers. And I saw very quickly that what I said meant something to them. My time invested in them was important to them. And I mean, I was 17, so I was still pretty immature and just playing games and being silly. But that was really where the spark lit for me, that God wanted me to do this. And so later on, I mean, that was a volunteer position. And later on, I switched majors in college, was going to Eastern Michigan. I was going to be a social worker or a psychologist, wanted to give back and help. And then it was through a missions trip and through some conversations that I felt God was like, you need to do this vocationally. You can make money doing what you do as a volunteer. And I was like, wait, what? Like, that's awesome. So
That's a job?
Yeah, like it was a cool concept.
That's funny, because I've had people over the years ask me that question.
Yeah.
You're a pastor. Do they pay you for that?
Yeah,
It's a job? Yeah.
Well,
people are shocked.
And the joke in a youth ministry is, it still happens to this day. Kids will ask me, like, so what do you do for a job? Like, when they interact with me at youth group, they don't get that it's a paid position.
No.
It's like, okay, what do you do for a living? But
so your story, basically, getting involved in ministry started when you were 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're a couple of years older. Okay, yeah. 10 years later. No. How old are you now?
We're not saying
We're
that.
doing it. No, this is a real life podcast. We do it. We do
Hold
it.
on. Put in the comments how old you think Kurt
Yeah,
is.
that's fine.
Oh!
That's what we...
Older.
Oh.
So he's been doing this for a few decades.
2 decades. I will say that. I've been
Decades
doing it
plus?
for 20 years. And
That's funny.
loved most of it.
Love-
What have been some of the biggest challenges of working with today's youth?
So diving into 2024 youth. I think the unique things, and again, this is kind of what I would say is in my tribe as well. So this is not just things I've experienced, but I feel like through my colleagues met with Zach this morning at Cowboy, these are kind of conversations that a lot of us are having. One I would say is anxiety. Kids have massive anxiety today. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think the pandemic didn't help. I think parents are filled with anxiety, which then gets passed on when you talk about financial issues, when you talk about family drama. So kids today are just growing up in an anxiety-filled world. I think that there is a lot more verbiage and conversation in the schools about anxiety, and so once you put a label to something, a lot more kids identify with the label.
Sure.
So that is good and bad. I think it's helpful in the sense that kids are filled with anxiety, but I think it also has just spread out the anxiety.
Sure.
So that affects a lot of what we do in student ministry. When we have camps or events or things, we see lower signups. I mean, post-pandemic, it just seems parents and students are less likely to send their kid out of town with adults that they don't know or have relationship with. I think that anxiety of a kid being away from parents for even a night or two is fearful.
There's still this self-preservation that exists because we see it in the church in general. There's moving people out of that since COVID. You think, we're 3 years, 4 years out from COVID. Man, the ripple effects of that mentally, emotionally on people is still really prevalent. And the data shows that. So if you have stressed out parents, for whatever reason, I mean, kids absorb the emotions of their parents.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels unfair as a parent, but they absorb it. And so, stressed out parents, anxious parents equals anxious kids.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
The
that's
phone,
so true.
the phone doesn't help. This is both an anxiety reliever and anxiety producer. So when we go away at camp and we say, hey, we're not going to have any cell signal, right? Kids freak out. I can't stay connected. I can't keep my Snapchat, thing going, my streak, and we joke, but like that, when I went
We'll have to put a little asterisk and explain that to PD.
You don't know what a streak is?
Yeah,
well, not the old school streak.
No, I realize that.
But
That's not what I was
the
referring
new
to.
school,
It's
okay.
just the posts have to keep going,
Yes.
and you maintain the streak.
Yes.
You
Okay,
maintain,
can I-
and you don't want to break. And that.
For sure.
For sure.
So can I just pull back? We're learning about FSM Students 2024. So we went to winter camp this past February. Kids weren't going to have Wi-Fi. Do you know that some of these kids had 400-day streaks, which means every single day they interacted on Snapchat at least once with a friend. If they had stopped that, they would have lost their valuable streak. And so do you know what these kids actually do? These kids told me this. When they're at camp, they have a person log into their phone
Oh no way!
away from camp to do the daily snap. That's how important
It's like
it
a
is.
Ghost Rider. It's a ghost poster.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying, the anxiety of losing a 400-day streak.
That's massively addicting.
And that's, it's like, you see the negatives of it are very clear, but there's also the positive. The human thing is the connection. They want to stay connected. Even though for us as adults, we're like, what kind of connection is that?
Right.
It's a connection. It
Yeah,
says
sure.
you mean something to me because
Sure.
you didn't drop our snap
Right.
streak. And if you have a higher amount, then you're closer to me. If you have 400 days, you're closer than the 200-day friend. So
You were more committed or something,
Yeah,
right?
this
So
is
commitment
the-
looks like posts.
This is the anxiety that we're talking about. So that would be the first one I would say is teens today are filled with anxiety. The other thing we face is what I would call apathy, and that's somebody said, a wise youth pastor years ago, that teens today are not sinning as much as they are filled with apathy, or some way like that quote is just that we see more kids that are struggling with apathy, just apathetic in their relationships, apathetic in their relationship with God, more so than sin. That is a bigger challenge for us as youth pastors, is getting them excited about reading the Bible, getting them excited about the spiritual disciplines. They're just kind of apathetic about it.
Are they excited about anything? Or is the apathy, does it transcend across all of the different platforms of life? Or is
Yeah.
it just spiritual apathy? Or is it just...
Yeah, it's a good question. I think most teens today that I work with are passionate about one thing.
Okay.
You know, they tend to like, their identity is soccer. Their
Okay.
identity is the relationship they're in. Their
Okay.
identity is their job. And once they find, I mean, it's not new. Once they find their thing, their identity, then they put a lot into that.
Sure.
I just think what's unique in 20 years of doing it is I think that there just is less receptivity to what we're challenging them with. You know, like I may challenge them, hey, let's read this in the Bible this week, or let's get excited about camp, or let's get excited about whatever. And I just think, you know, as our culture gets more secular, you
Right.
know, I mean, there's ways to look at it, but I just think there's a little bit more of a thanks but no thanks, you know,
Right.
that they're not as, it's not sticking or as catchy as it once was.
And yet they're not so apathetic that they're not showing up because your middle school program is
Yeah.
bursting
Yeah.
at the seams, and we're running out of space, and
Sure.
and so, but I'm assuming showing up there represents a type of connection
Sure.
that they want.
Yeah.
So whether it's spiritual or not, you're trying to bring the spiritual piece, but
Yes.
we're providing a platform for connection that's
Yeah.
different than their phone.
Yeah.
It also goes back to what you were talking about, like parents too, because I would say I don't necessarily know if apathy is only subject to the kids right now. Like,
Don't get me started.
Right? Yeah, I was gonna say that. You put it into really great words, but I'm thinking like, oh, I feel like a lot of adults are like you said, we've got our one thing, like, oh, I gotta focus on this, and my spiritual stuff just gets on the back burner. I think that's very common in today's culture. So that's very insightful.
Yeah, I can start talking about
Kurt.
parenting because listen, your kids really reflect you. I know parents look at teens and whatnot. Oh, they're so different than me, and they're really not. They're really a mirror of you more than you realize, and that's a humbling thing as a parent
Oh yeah.
to recognize. It just is. So,
Well,
but
let's
I will
get
stop
into
there.
What the
Let's
kids
get on the
say
question.
about
Yeah,
this.
we're gonna
let's
see
what
and
the
hear
kids
about
say.
some parents in here.
let's do it.
Okay, so the prompt was, what do you wish adults knew about being a teenager right now? So the first one I'm going to read, this teen wrote that our mental health is not always something we show on the outside. That we have different feelings than they do. So they're saying that we have different feelings than your parents.
Mm-hmm.
So read the first part of that.
That our mental health is not always something we show on the outside.
Sure.
That we have different feelings than they do, and I'm assuming they're talking
They,
about
parents,
their parents.
yeah.
I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
Well,
about that?
part of that is that it goes back to what you talked about. Here's a student talking about mental health.
Yeah.
It was an open-ended question.
Yeah.
And they went to mental health.
Right to that.
They went right to that. So that kind of surprises me. So this tells you how much that type of thing is on the front burner, as you said earlier. It's talked about more in our culture. It's talked about more at schools, and so again, it's just an observation that I don't know how different when you first started youth ministry 20 years ago, students probably weren't talking about mental health. Okay, so.
No.
Fascinating.
And this one is similar to that first one, so I'll just tie it in with this. This person says, puberty and going through emotions like depression is really hard, and sometimes we can't pull ourselves out of that.
Mm.
Oh, that makes my heart hurt a little bit. That's really honest. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can't pull ourselves out of it. So, as a parent listening to that, yes, yeah, I'm listening. I'm listening as a parent to stuff
Yeah.
like that because I think sometimes maybe both of these had to do with feelings and emotions and whatnot. I think that sometimes as adults we can undervalue the emotions of kids and teens. Because, I don't know, they're kids, they're teens, they're emotional, they'll get over it.
They're so emotional.
Yeah.
So we can
Never heard
downplay
that.
it.
I've never heard that before. But anyway, so but I think they devalue them in a way, or they can. It's not intentional. I think parents want to do that, but I think that when we tell our kids, just get over it, okay, or just move on, or just I think the emotions are way more intense. My guess is than they have the ability to communicate. Then they are communicating it now. See.
Yeah.
I love that. I can't pull myself out of it.
That's very insightful. Yeah, what do you think, Kurt? What were your thoughts when you were reading these?
Yeah, I think that what I hear in that is we need you. You know,
Yeah.
we need
Yeah.
adults, because there are pieces of, again, in the teen world, it's like we get this when a kid's 5, 6, 7, 8. We will bend over backwards to meet the needs of that little one, right? But there is something once we get into the teen years that I notice a lot of parents like, you got to figure it out on your own, son. You know, it's almost like this attitude of like, get out of here, dad's busy, or mom's doing this. Or, you know, they change their job schedule. It's like they're okay with leaving John at home because he's 14. But when he was 5, obviously you're not going to do that. That's neglect. But I think there is that tension of like parents feel that kids are pushing them away in these teen years. So they naturally then go away, right? But I think that's sad because, like you heard in this reply, I need you to be involved when I'm spinning out. Don't run away from me. I actually need you to figure me out. It's like a puzzle. It's like you got to play some, you know, some strategies.
And just because your kids are a porcupine, sometimes they're an emotional porcupine. It's hard to get close to an emotional porcupine, okay? But they act that way as teens sometimes, you know? And you're right. Man, it's just so, don't run away from your kids. But I think parents have to change their tactics. I mean, I know it isn't possible for me to not click into parent mode because there's parents listening and you're running away from your kids and you shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, and I get it because it's hard and you don't understand their emotions or their intensity or whatnot. But you have to change your tactics as they get older. And if you figure out what that is, your kids will talk to you.
Sure.
Because they want to. I mean, they just said, we need you. I mean, I love you that you said that.
Yeah.
You know, and you're working with kids, you know, all the time, Kurt. And so maybe that's a great message to parents who think their teens don't need them. All right? Listen to the guy who's working with your kids every week. They need you, mom and dad. They need you.
Yeah, they need you in a different way. Don't disengage. Find new ways. And if you're overwhelmed, a lot of parents are overwhelmed, be honest about that. You know, get a counselor, go to CR. Like, we have tons of resources here. The community has resources. There are books. I mean, you've never had more information. We got ChatGPT. Like, literally, you can ask AI. I mean, we joke about it, but it's like, I find it like 95% of the time, it's actually really helpful to just ask ChatGPT, how do I better connect with my teen? What answer is going to come up? You know, I mean, we could ask right now, but I think that's helpful. If it gives you a tool to then learn, a handle to have, a question prompt. So yeah.
Where do you, Kurt, like, because I'm listening to this and this is all great stuff, where's the line of trying to validate your teens' feelings while also trying to teach them at the same time that the feelings can't run the show? Does that make sense? Because we can enter that and have the empathy for them, but like, look, you know, Lucy lied about you to this other friend. Like, I promise you it's not the end of the world. Like, like, but without them, well, how do you not cut that line off? Because you're going to say something like that as a parent, and then they're going to be like, I can't tell you anything. Yeah. You know, where do you draw, where's the line?
Yeah, I'll use a silly metaphor, but I think it's helpful. It's one of our things that we train our volunteers is to be thermostats, not thermometers, right? And so it's the idea of a thermostat knows what the temperature is, but it has the power to change it, right? So if you're a thermometer, you're just going with the motions of the teen. Like, some days she's here, some days he's here, right? Like, a thermostat does acknowledge the temperature. It's like, you know if it's hot in the room or cold in the room, right? But you're the adult, and so you do have the power, the ability to shift the temperature. Now, again, to play that analogy out a little bit further, some parents flip it too fast, right? It's like I said, dad's like, well, get over it, son, be a man. It's like, well, let's go up a degree. Let's not go up 10 degrees because he's still 14, you know? And I think it's the old golden rule, you know, do unto others as you would have done unto you. Imagine yourself at 14, right? Because we're adults, we're living, you know, older, wiser, all the things. What were we like when we were 14? Yeah. Were we facing similar challenges? And what would we have wanted our dad to say? How many of us are wounded from words that our parents said or didn't say? So I think, again, it's not rocket science in one sense. It's just slowing down enough to consider what would I have wanted to have heard when I come home and I just had a breakup. It's my first, you know, girl that I asked out and she broke up with me. You can say, come on, you know, grow up, kid, you know. Or you can be like, man, that's really hard. I'm sorry you're going through that.
Because don't most people, and I don't care if you're a kid, a student, or an adult, don't most people want their feelings to be acknowledged?
Yeah.
Just acknowledge that. Okay, I think sometimes we, like you said, we want to change the temperature too quickly.
Sure.
We want to, you're angry. I want my kid to stop being angry. You're hurt. I want my kid to stop being hurt. It's just like, let them feel it.
Yeah.
Let them be that right now, because they need that.
Yeah.
The
other thing that parents have that often we as youth workers don't is you have the advantage of time. So you don't have to do everything in one conversation. I see a lot of parents feeling like, I got to fix it. I got to sermonize. I got to give them Bible verses. And it's like, in the moment of the emotion, right, the temperature, you're reading the room. You get that the kid is emotional. That's not the best time to have the long conversation. That's the moment to see where they're at, hug them, love them, bandage them up, and then tomorrow after school, hey, can we talk about that? Maybe this girl isn't best for you, or maybe this choice that you're making is not good. So I think just letting parents know you have the long game. Think about the long game, not just today. And that helps you make better decisions.
That's great stuff.
Okay. Good stuff.
I'm going to consolidate some of these because we have a lot of them. So here's a few different responses. That they aren't the only ones who have problems. That we don't all do drugs. Just because some of our friends do wrong things doesn't mean we do. And how hard it is to navigate friend groups. So I kind of put those all into one.
Oh boy.
I know.
Okay,
so I've seen the pattern I'm here. I can almost like envision this kid at home. Parents aren't liking the friend group, and they're saying we don't all do drugs. Just because some of our friends do wrong things doesn't mean we do. And then the third one was how hard it is to navigate friend groups.
Yeah, this thing is really hard. You're asking me to do. Yeah. Huh. Okay. So you're asking a question? What are you doing?
No. I'm telling you what the kids are saying.
Yeah,
the kids wish adults knew that the adults aren't the only ones that have problems, that kids don't all do drugs, and that just because some of their friends do wrong things doesn't mean they do, and they wish we knew how hard it is to navigate friend groups. So almost like those last three to me almost seem like, oh, these are already my friends. They're doing bad things. I'm not. It's hard to switch friend groups. I'm already in 7th or 8th grade or whatever it is. Like, so that's their response. They wish that adults knew that.
It's almost like I wish you knew this is a piece of my world that you don't understand.
Yeah.
I wish you did or could.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you see that type of thing a lot?
Where my mind goes in those is that parents and youth leaders, and let's broaden it, right? Any adult, coaches, teachers, what do you wish adults knew, not just parents.
Well, sure.
Yep.
But I think it's the idea of jumping to conclusions. You take a fast judgment, a quick slice. You smell marijuana in the room, so everybody in the room is smoking, or just you make a quick judgment, and we're challenged by that as FSM leaders. A kid walks in a certain kind of clothing, we put a template in our mind, we judge that student as fill in the blank, right? And I think that we really have to work hard to not do that, because every kid is an individual, every kid walks in from vastly different homes and spiritual backgrounds. And that's what I hear the crying out of, like, not all of us do drugs, in my friend group. I mean, man, kids would rather be in a bad friend group and feel belonging than be alone. So, again, this is the tension when I see parents like, I got to break this thing up. My kid's in a bad relationship. Then they're going to sit alone, and you got to have an alternative. Like, there has to be somewhere for the kid to land. And I think I appreciate the parents who try to make youth group that. They're like, my kid needs to come to youth group. That's where they'll be connected. And I'm like, I want that, but I also can't magically make relationships happen.
Unless that happens organically.
Yeah. We can create the soil and the environment, but unfortunately I don't have that last piece of the magic, of making it. It has happened. It's beautiful when it does. But I think, again, kids, just like adults and any human, are longing to be in relationship. And they want to have close relationships. The difference between us and them is they're still young and new at that. They don't know how. And again, post-pandemic, I'll go there again, they don't know how to make those connections. So they stumble through it, and then they get bullied, or they get, a parent involved, and it's crash and burn. And then they're like, well, I'm done. I'm not trying anymore. And that's the really sad cases where they get depressed and, suicidal thoughts happen because they feel alone in the world, So
now as a parent, you're in your head, you're thinking like association is everything. But also, I think as soon as you voice too much of what this kid in particular is talking about, like, I don't do these bad things, but if you're automatically assuming just because their friends do, they're going to stop telling you things. And then you have lost your influence as a parent.
Yeah.
As soon as you try, it's almost like I remember being the teen where I was told not to do something, and then I just stopped telling them what I was doing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dad, if you're listening.
Yeah.
I grown up, but
Yeah.
I it's hard to. I'm now as a parent. I'm like how do you not add fuel to the fire, but also like look out for your kids at the same time.
But doesn't that go back to what Kurt
hard.
said earlier about you, as a parent, you play the long game. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes we want to solve the tension too quickly instead of investing in the relationship. Sometimes we want to, as a parent, you want to invest in the problem instead of the we think we're investing in the kid, but they don't feel that way.
Right.
That's why they quit talking to you. That's why they avoid you. That's why they're sneaking in behind your back. And so, we want to solve problems too quickly. It's the tension where kids learn to grow, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the tension's life. I mean, it's part of life. And so that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's a scary thing for a parent because you feel like you're losing control. But that's the normal process of kids getting older. But that's a teachable moment. That's a long game conversation.
Sure.
Not something that you have to fix today. But that's the fear of a parent. Now your fear is driving you as a parent.
Yeah.
Sorry, parenting again. Back to
I
parenting.
know. I
So-
know. Keep it to the kids.
But you got parents listening.
Oh, for sure. I
You
know.
know?
I'm just
So-
teasing you. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Next one. I'll read two. You can't pause an online game, which I know Kurt had stuff to say on that one. And then the second one, this kid wrote that we try and focus on schoolwork, but we have other things in life. And when we don't do good in school, they yell at us, even though we are trying our hardest, and they don't understand school is stressful and it ruins mental health.
Wow.
So let's go back
That's
to
a line, that last one.
Wow,
Yeah.
really?
School
Here we
ruins
go.
mental health.
It kills brain cells. Wait,
Well, we are in Oregon.
Yeah.
You can't pause an online game. You had some good insight because you were like, at first look, that looks like a silly one, but when you read between the lines, you
Yeah, I
tell them
almost,
what you
when we
told
kind
us.
of pre-looked at these, we obviously had some that we didn't address, and this was one I was like, I still think we should address it because it might, on the surface, feel a little bit of a throwaway, younger, immature kid, just like, Mom, Dad, like, online games, you can't pause them, right? But I think at the heart of it is a valuable thing, which is parents, coaches, again, youth workers, need to learn a little bit about the world these kids live in. And so I've been playing video games, literally Fortnite with students, maybe some of yours, and a parent will walk in and be like, Johnny, you didn't do your homework, get off, or like, you gotta go clean the whatever. And the parent wants, like, instantly. Like, there's no, like, pausing, there's no whatever, and then the kid just logs off. Well, what the parent doesn't know, and probably doesn't care about, is we just lost the game because of that. Like, now Johnny logged off, and the game's over. And we're like, well, we're done.
So if he was playing with 4 or 5 other people, or
He's a
8 people,
teammate. Yeah.
right?
It'd be the equivalent of walking on a basketball court and being like, Johnny, you didn't do your cleanup, get off the court, and the team
Game
loses,
over.
right? So, again, from an adult perspective, is that the end of the world? Of course not. We'll go on to play another video game. But what I hear in that, and what I think is an important thing, is that you didn't seek to understand the world and the effect that had, because the reason why the kid is upset is not necessarily because we lost the game, it's because he let his buddies down.
Right.
You're letting my friends down who I'm trying to be, trying to build relationship, trying to be seen as a good teammate.
So then the next day, buddies are coming up going, dude,
We lost that game.
what was the deal with your folks, man?
Yeah.
Because
Your dad's a
so
jerk,
now
you
you
know?
got to now you got to
So-
deal with that. What's that? What's this, Kurt? A better maybe a way to handle a situation like that as a parent?
Yes.
Since I'm not as my understanding is not as great as yours. How do you get out of the game in a realistic amount of time as a parent?
Yeah.
What do you
that's,
say?
That's good. I think my first thought, again, learn a little bit about what your kid's doing online. I think it's a general blanket conversation. I think in that scenario, it would go a long way to show value to your kid to say, hey, bud, I know you're in the middle of a game. I know that you can't just jump off it. You did forget to do what you said you were going to do.
Okay.
And as a parent, I'm going to hold you to the thing you said, you're supposed to do your chores. So I need you off at 9 p.m. or, there's a time. So you're putting a objective, like, this is the thing. You're going to be done at this time, right? And then, like any good parenting book will tell you, you have to then come back in and hold them to that, right? So then it is a point of, like, I told you it was going to be 9, you're now
And you're
still
going.
you started a new game, because I'll be honest, parents, there's been moments where the kid will start a new game, even though I'm like, your mom just told you to get off. So at any rate, I think just being, kind enough to understand, yes, that would affect his friends negatively.
Okay.
Know enough about that world. I think, again, man, I love the parents that play with their kids. Even
Right.
if I've heard so many, I'm not good at video games, I don't have the attention span, it's not my thing. Just once a week, sit down for 5 minutes and
Right.
pretend. Okay,
Yeah.
we're adults here, no kids are listening, right? Like,
Yeah.
pretend like you like it.
And lose with your kids.
Yes, that's so
Go
much
go
of,
go lose. I mean,
I'll just be honest with student ministry, that's so much of what we do, right? You pretend until it does matter. And that's the thing God works in your heart, is like so much of what we're doing when kids come up to us and, I'm stressed out. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Internally, you're like, I'm not, I don't understand. But you pretend you care about the kid, you care about this thing because they care about it.
it's tough
So-
as a parent to look stupid in front of your kid because they're doing something usually that they're much better at than you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing that with my grandkids right now. I mean, I lose to a 6-year-old all the time.
Yeah.
In fact, I've never won. Okay, so
Just come clean. Yep.
just complain. Yeah, let's just call it what it is.
Yeah. I don't even know if pretending is the right word, Kurt,
Sure.
because you genuinely care. So it's like you are genuinely showing that you care, even if you, in your mind, you're like, this is a really silly thing, but you care enough
You're
to
stepping into their
listen.
world.
Yeah.
You're
so
stepping
I wouldn't
into their
even
world.
use pretend. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean, I guess I meant maybe clarify. Pretending that you like the video game,
Right.
Because
Yeah.
yes, you care about your kid, assuming
Yeah.
you're a
This
youth
is good
leader,
marriage
coach,
advice,
whatever.
too. Yeah.
But like,
Lots of
try it,
applications
you
here.
know? and you might, and that's the thing too. I've seen with some, you might end up liking it. I mean,
Yeah.
you might end up being
Right.
the guy who like, surprise, I actually like this game.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
good at
You
it.
know, so that becomes a connector with your kid.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
here's the bottom line: you're never gonna go wrong as an adult getting into the world of teens and showing interest. I just over and over again, kids know that you're trying and they appreciate that. Even
Yeah.
if you're fumbling through it, it's better than a parent who's disconnected, who doesn't have time for them. Like, just show interest.
So I guess that every parent is just as your kids get older, you're trying to figure out what makes my kid feel valued, right? Just what is it, whether it's playing a video game or whatever it is.
Man, I know. We have so many to get through.
Let's go.
These are so good. Okay, I'm going to link 3 of these together. So this kid wrote, how social media affects self-esteem, how school and future planning can be overwhelming, and then this one was one of my personal favorites. The adult pressure is greater than teen pressure, and then in giant capital letters they said, give us a break. So it was sarcasm. So they're saying adult pressure is greater than teen pressure. Yeah, right. So, but, I mean, honestly, that is how you feel as a teen.
Yeah.
They don't know what we're going through.
Yeah.
I remember feeling that way.
Sure.
It's a very real feeling. Your
Yeah.
guys' thoughts?
I think it brings up the perennial issue, gosh, every year in youth ministry that I've faced, is the gap between parents' perception of the world today and the world they grew up in. I mean, I've watched 3 or 4 generations now of parents who say the same thing, which is the equivalent of, well, it was just as hard as when I was a kid, And I think they mean well somewhat when they say that to their teen, but I think it blows up any bridge of conversation because you've just discounted that I'm under major stress with my grades, with my girlfriend, with the video game that you just blew up, Mom, like...
Don't even pull in social media.
Yeah.
And cyberbullying, that wasn't a thing.
It's
back
massive.
Yep.
So I think the phone alone is what I go to, is I just... Yes, we grew up in a much different... we grew up in a time where temptation was still there. We had struggles. We had similar things that they dealt with. But all of those things got much more readily available when we got these black rectangles in our pockets. And where you and I have had them added to our lives, they have not lived a day without it.
Right.
They were handed probably an iPad when they were 3 years old, and they're clicking around, playing around, and when you walk out of the room, they slide over and they're on YouTube, and they're, they know this.
It's
world.
amazing how they navigate technology.
Yeah.
It is amazing. I know. I see my grandkids.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Lisa and I, I have an iPhone and she's got an Android. She has a Samsung, and I can't run her phone. She can't run mine. The grandkids.
They know.
It doesn't matter what phone it is, man. They are swiping and moving, and they almost could do it as soon as they had them.
Yeah.
It just blows me away.
I had to like take responsibility when I noticed how attracted to technology my kids were, and I'm like, that's because of us. I mean, if they didn't see us on it all the time, why would they care?
True.
They'd be like, oh, it's just we didn't have an obsession with phones that you had to pick up, because our parents weren't on all the time. So what are your thoughts? This is a real life podcast. This would be an opinion question. What age do you think is appropriate to give a kid a phone? What are your thoughts on those? You guys might differ in this, but what have you seen? What do you think? Go, Kurt.
I'll defer first to the expert sitting over here. Yeah.
It's like the car salesman tactic. Let's have him put the price out first.
That's funny.
It's obviously hard to say a particular age because anytime you say the age, I mean, if I was to say 11, I can think of some really mature 11-year-olds that I've worked with that give them a phone. But then there's also, 16, 17-year-olds who are very immature and have impulse control issues, right?
Sure.
So the tension in my mind is being really hard and fast on an age. I think that the best thing, not to get back on Team Android or Google, but or that's the same team, on iPhone or Android, is I've noticed with iPhone, they've come a long way with parental controls to the point where I've changed a lot of the old things, I would say, because now as a parent, if you have an iPhone, you can set up your kid as a sub-account, basically. So you can limit what apps they download. You can limit how much time they have on an app. You can see, from what I understand, what they're doing. So I think if I was a parent today, I would start by trusting my teen with boundaries and a sub-account, and then as they prove themselves, able to do that, then as time rolls on, you take more of the guardrails off. So then they're 16, it's like, okay, maybe there's more people they can contact, more apps that they use. I know a lot of my friends just there's a way you can turn off the ability to download new apps.
Right.
So, I mean, that just shuts down a huge door. That and the browser, I think, are the two biggest areas kids can get into trouble. And then you as a parent become the password protected, hey mom, my friends are playing this new game, can I download it?
Right.
All right, let's talk about that. What are you going to do in this game? Are you going to chat with strangers? Are you going to, let's make sure we have some understanding of what you're going to do. So, I don't know. I think probably answers your question. I don't like the actual age thing because of kids being so different. But I think starting with trusting them with boundaries and then over time releasing them. I think 18, just like them potentially moving out of your house, by then they should have their own accounts and be set free from the parental whatever. You hope to not have your 25, 30-year-old in your basement. I mean, it happens. No shame on those families that do. But the goal would be similarly with the phone, that you're not having them protected by mom or dad at 30 years old. So between now and then, you got to kind of let go a little bit of the control.
Our goal as a parent is to train, as the Bible says. You train your children. You train them. And I think sometimes we don't understand what training means. I mean, and so again, I agree with Kurt. I mean, you don't just give them carte blanche a phone at 18 and turn them loose if they haven't been trained how to manage the phone, because you're managing a lot of stuff. This thing is powerful, and so. Again, Kurt gave great answers. It's not the question about an age is it's almost irrelevant. It's just like how old should you be when you date? Same thing. It's irrelevant. It's based on the kid. It's based on their maturity. It's based on their track record, their decision making. It's based on all these factors that it has nothing to do with an age. Nothing. It has everything to do with the kid and how well the parent knows the kid.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's so funny. I don't think my husband and I sharing, we're completely on different pages, because this kid, he got a phone when he was in 4th grade. And I didn't get one till almost high school. And so I'm like, you give a kid a phone when you want their childhood to be ripped from them. And my husband's like, they need it for sports. So this was good insight. You're right. You do have to know your kids.
Well, when we're talking phone, we're talking these. We're not talking something where you can just call mom and dad because you're done with practice. Or there's simplistic things you can give your kids
track
for.
Phones.
There are some,
Yeah, we're talking. Yeah.
Yeah, good
iPhones.
stuff. Okay, next response. So this kid says that we are trying our best, but we need your support right now. Another one says, we don't always know our emotions. And then the third one I'm going to read right now, it says, it's harder to be connected with other people today. So I love that a lot of these kids we need your support right now, they put the exclamation point. We don't always know our emotions. So those are two big things to admit. That's a little bit of self-awareness right there.
Yeah.
I think even adults don't always know their emotions,
Right.
Especially Christian culture, we're kind of suppress, your feelings are bad, the heart is evil,
Well, right, and we have certain emotions that are unacceptable. Sometimes in some Christian cultures, okay, so you can't be angry, or you can't be, depressed, or you can't be anxious, because if you just pray, God will give you peace, right? Well, you're not praying enough. I mean, stop the cliches, okay? So depends on probably what culture they're coming from, but.
And I'm imagining as a teen you have tons of emotions, so it probably is hard to decipher, and they change so often. So
No problem. I guess I haven't grown up. I still have tons of emotion. No comment. Keep going.
Yeah, well, it's harder to be connected with other people today. That was the third one I read. It's harder to be connected with other people today, which is so fascinating after we just got done talking about phones, where we can look at our culture and be like, we're the most connected we've ever been, but we're also literally the least connected because these are superficial connections.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the students talk is taking it beyond a phone connection.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's what I hear in that, and I think it's not either or, it's both and, because I think the parental, sometimes people just pull the phone away, all the social media away. I want you to be physically in the room with people, go try out for sports or whatever, and it's like, it's not the same thing that once that kid is on the team, often the baseball team has a group chat, or they have a group Snapchat, or you know what I mean, and so for your kid to be the one who's not in it, nobody wants it, but they end up becoming the outsider. They're not included in the jokes and the inside or whatever. And so there just, again, is this tension, like, again, with video games, parents can really pick on that as, like, a waste of time, and it's just why is this kid got to talk to people on the video games and have his headset on? They view it as he's disconnected. He's down in the basement, it's dark, and he's in a dungeon, and he's alone.
They see it as isolation.
Isolation. But one of the things that, again, just helping parents understand their world, kids today are connected through video games. They are feeling a connection to, sometimes locally, sometimes nationally, and this gets into the weirdness of the world today. But when a kid feels disconnected at their school or even at their youth group or their church, they go to their phone and connect with kids on the other side of the country. They're playing with kids in Florida, out here in Oregon. They're playing Black Ops, or they're playing Roblox or some sort of thing. Now, again, that gets scary as a parent because you don't know who these kids are.
Right.
But what I want to communicate is the heart from the kid, even if they can't verbalize that they don't know their emotions, is I'm lonely and I need somebody to connect with. So how are they finding connection? Through affinity. So in the same way an adult today might, I like, hot rod cars, so I'm in a Facebook group and I'm talking to some guy in Florida about his Corvette.
Right.
It's similar. It's you find a connection as a man through a social media app to connect with someone else because you didn't find that here. For some reason in Malala you didn't find that connection.
I keep hearing this theme about understanding our world. Understand my world. Understand my world.
Yeah.
Most parents, they're Kurt, what do you figure? A junior high kid, high school kid, most of the parents are probably in their 40s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, late 30s, 40s, yeah.
So let's think about what the world was like when they were teens. Now, it's crazy different. I mean, the world has changed so radically. Yeah. I mean, iPhones didn't come out, praise God, when I was raising my kids.
Yep, 2007. That's when they started.
Right. And so they just haven't been out that long. But what did... The phones were coming out, and we went through the whole texting thing.
Yeah.
Hilarious. I got stories, but I won't go into that. And then because back then, the more you text, the more cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They didn't have unlimited plans.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
but just I think parents. I think it's really easy to just misjudge how radically different the world is that your teens are living in compared to the one you lived in.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem that far removed, but it is. I mean, it's almost infinite how different it is.
Yeah.
So understand their world, and what does that look like? How do you? But you got to spend time with them in their world.
Yeah. And that's like, I think of it, it might seem like a weird connection, but I think it connects with our vision as a church, as our student ministry, is we're missionaries, right? It's like so many churches set up shop in a town and they're just like, come to us, be like us, talk like us, learn our secret handshake, this is what we do, this is our prayers, you know?
Yep.
And they wonder why the numbers are dwindling and people find no need for God in their life.
Right.
But we as a church are very missional. How we train our volunteers is you're a missionary, and part of being a missionary is understanding the teens, understanding their culture.
Yeah.
And if you come in with an attitude of your culture's bad or you're wasting your time or just any negative like on their culture, they're going to resist. They're going to wall off. They're going to shut down. And so I think so much of it as a parent, you might be thinking, well, Kurt, I don't have time for this, or how do I do this? It's literally just asking the question. Help me understand, why is this such an important thing to you? Why is this video game? Why is this app? Why do sports matter so much to you? Like just an inquisitive, questioning mind goes a long way. Instead of more expectations or telling them that they're, wrong for putting all their attention on a girl or, something that you as a parent might not understand.
Yeah.
So I think so much of it is just having a posture of, you're my kid, I love you, I'm going to be in your life for a while, let's figure it out together, instead of demands and change now or more expectations, because that's so much of what we hear in those questions is parent pressure is worse than teen pressure, And I think there's a lot of truth to that today. I think teens are just trying to figure it out, and I think the pressure from parents is, I want you to get a scholarship, or I want you to be out of my house. There's a drive to push them to strive to not be, a freeloader or whatever you would say, like independent. And so that sometimes can come across as pressure to perform and try to make mom and dad happy, because that's still a part of teens, developmentally, is they want mom and dad to say, great job, not here's more to do or here's more expectations. So
yeah, that's so good. Very valuable. Okay, we got just a few left. So this kid writes, there are probably things we are struggling with that we don't want to talk with you about. I think that one's a good one all by itself.
Yeah, we stop right there.
Yeah, let's hear what you guys say about that.
Yeah, what do you do when they don't want to talk about it? When it's underground? I think where my mind goes with that is, it's kind of the counter to what we were just saying, which is, as an adult, you have lived as a teen, you are human, so you can imagine some of the things that they are struggling with, right? So, like, there are common human struggles and challenges, and so I think if I'm a dad or a coach or a parent or a youth worker, at times just asking questions, trying to open the door in an area that I know, teens often struggle in this direction. Is drugs a part of, have you wrestled with drugs? Has any of your friends, it's always easier too to ask about their friends, right? Instead of it making like, has any of your friends been tempted by fill in the blank? And then there's a little like, well, yeah. Okay, let's talk about that, Like the amount of times I hear kids at youth group talking about other kids vaping, these kids in the bathroom are vaping. It's like, so that never has been a temptation for you. Like the kids at youth group never ever think about doing the things other kids are doing. So I think that, at times, again, and that's part of the art of working with teens, is knowing the moment. Because you wake up at 7 a.m, your kid's, getting ready for school. That might not be the best moment to drop in a serious conversation. But knowing your kid or knowing the guy on the sports team or whatever, like sometimes that perfect moment kind of happens. You're shoulder to shoulder, that they're not stressed out. Then it's time to ask a question, prompt, like, I feel like you're struggling with something. Is there anything you want to chat about? I'm here for you. So I think the more that we can place on-ramps to conversations, get some of that stuff to the surface. I think the other thing I hear in that question is sometimes parents want to be the end-all be-all, right? Yep. I want my son to talk to me about it, And it's like, well, are you okay? Is your ego okay with that God might actually use someone else? The coach might actually have that conversation, the youth worker, the teacher. Because I think the most healthiest thing that a teen can have is multiple adults
Sure.
Like statistics that I've read, books I've read say 5 adults are necessary. If you want your teen to become an adult that's independent, it takes a minimum of 5 adults in their life. You're included in that. Don't discount your role.
Right.
But if you really want to see an independent, well-rounded student, there has to be other men and women who agree with you. It's not about saying, well, I want him to be influenced by somebody who disagrees with me on, the important stuff. But I just think a lot of parents have a closed-in, like, I'm going to protect my kid from the evils of the world. Well, you're also limiting them probably from another person who might be the safe person that can share the struggle they're going through, because they don't feel comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable. I'll just be transparent.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I had parents that I could share everything I was going through.
Right.
So where did I find that? Through, adults at the church, through counselors. It wasn't through mom or dad. So I think that's hard as a parent to be like not the person.
Right.
But I think also if your goal is long term and you want them to be healthy, walking with Jesus as adults, sometimes you let go of your expectations to be the person.
But, Kurt, just to be a healthy person, a human being, we all need multiple voices in our life. So it's not, I look at this and I'm going, absolutely true. But that's not a student thing.
Sure.
I mean, anybody listening to this, how many different significant people have spoken into my life, your life, your life. We need different voices. And sometimes somebody says it, they say the same thing.
Yeah.
They're representing the same value. And yet, it's like hearing it for the very first time, and it clicks. I mean, as a communicator, I hear this all the time. And I'll get up there and speak it Sunday after Sunday, and then Kurt gets up there and says the same thing, and all of a sudden it connects with people.
Yeah.
Okay, it works like that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how it works, and it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So
Very
I'm just
true.
Partnership.
Good stuff. Okay. Let's see here. When I show you my art or animations, I want more than just, oh, that's nice or that's cool. It makes me feel like I wasted hours on something for nothing. That one, stuck with me because I'm like, how many times have I said, oh, that's great, while I'm busy doing something, and you think that you're, giving them.
Yeah.
So I know what I hear when I read that. What goes on in you, Kurt, when you hear a comment like that?
Yeah, I think it's just, again, kind of more of the same of like a parent, the student isn't feeling like the parent is really connected with them.
Yeah.
There is a disconnection. So like you're saying, and again, no judgment. Parents paying bills, they're on a phone call, you don't know what's going on in that moment.
Totally.
But I hear a student who's longing for connection, isn't making the connection. I want to hear, I'm proud of you. I want to have that longer, you're awesome, you're incredible, you're great. And I'm sure it's more than that one interaction, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot around that. So I think just, again, I love seeing, like I've seen you with your daughter at Prairie House. I love seeing parents, taking that one-on-one time. You have multiple kids, right? And it's like whether you have 1 kid or 4 kids, having that one-on-one time and just looking them in the eye and spending even 30 minutes goes a long way, because you are going to fail. You're going to mess up. There's going to be moments where you need grace, and kids need to hear that from their parents. Like, I need grace. Mom messed up. I acknowledge that, right? But the more you invest in those times where you're one-on-one with your kid, when you make those moments of you're stressed out or you don't have the time, it's not as big of a withdrawal. It's not a big of a disconnection, is how I think of it. But you, what were you thinking?
No, it's the same thing, Kurt.
It's
I hear a kid crying out for affirmation.
Yeah.
They want, like you said, they want their parent to be proud of them. And I think sometimes when we give our kids affirmation, we need to lean into more specifics instead of just going, hey, good job. If they're artistic or something, okay? I mean, pause over what they did. Talk about the details of the picture. Talk about the details of their, whatever it is they're seeking affirmation for.
Yeah.
Don't just give them this generic, pat them on the head, hey, that's a good job, and then you move on to the busyness of your life. Pause.
Yeah.
Enter into that. That was a big deal to them. Because I think that insecurity is just built into being teenagers.
Yeah.
They're insecure. And the place they should be the most secure is at home. And they're looking for that. They're crying out for that. Affirm me. Tell me I'm okay. Tell me what I did was okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I hear.
The most confident kids you guys have seen, do you notice patterns, like certain things they have in place that other kids don't have? Or have you noticed anything like that? I know it's off the cusp, but you're absolutely right. Like, low self-esteem is something that just seems to happen in the teen years. But
Yeah, it does.
I'm curious if you guys have seen.
I think the ones that there is real confidence and then there's appearance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
if we're talking about the kids who are truly confident, they walk into their classroom, they walk on the sports field, into the youth group, into church, and they just like, I am who I am. Like, I'm at peace. I'm internally like not, like I'm cool with where I'm at. I think that kid has a mom and a dad, or key adults that are already, for the last 5 years they've had people pouring into them affirmation. Confidence is built. It's like one brick at a time, one positive statement at a time, and it's the small stuff. It doesn't have to be the big thing, right? It's the coffee with my daughter. But over time, those investments you're making when she's 16, right, you will have less of the, my mom doesn't love me, or I'm insecure, or I need a boyfriend to fill me. It's like, well, the time you invested, just like in a stock or a bank account, right, is coming back. So I think the kids who are confident but not cocky on the sports field, same thing. It's like, sports are important. Dad was into baseball, so you're into baseball, but it's not going to rule your life. There's going to be a line here. You're still going to go to youth group. You're still going to have church in your life. You're still going to be a well-rounded person, right? I think the appearance is reality, too. I think there's a lot of kids who appear confident, but once you open up the hood and you see them like crash a little bit, it's like, I'm just trying to prove to everybody that I'm something, right? So you got to be careful. Sometimes that confidence is false. They're actually trying to be worth something because their dad hasn't invested in them, or they're just feeling disconnected.
Usually when you watch them handle failure, that's when you find out some of that stuff. I think a lot of that's just cultivated at home, Katie. And other key adults that kids have in their life. I feel like Lisa and I have been, God's blessed, raising two very self-confident, self-reliant girls.
Yep.
And but that was, part of that was trial and error and intentionality, and you create an environment. Environment is powerful, so that the environment you raise your kids in gets in them. It's in them. It's not a one thing. It's not a one event. It's not a one time. It's just this environment that you create. And we always decided too that we knew that life's going to be hard. It's broken. It's fallen. Kids are going to go to school and get beat up by life. And so we always wanted home to be a refuge where we all got put back together. And so we talked about that. We told the kids that this is what we're trying to do. Here's the environment that we want. This is the environment you get put back together. You get beat up out there, and it's going to happen. You have to come back home sometimes with the tail between your legs because the world beats you up or you made bad choices. It's going to happen. But here we get put back together. Here's where then we get all the pieces put back together. We love each other, and then we go back out, and it's a new day.
It's very valuable.
So
Everly, so my oldest, has been I'm starting to pick up on like some of the girl drama that's happening in first grade. She's telling me all about it. And she's very type A. Her personality is very type A, and she really wants she loves hearing that she's the most popular girl or whatever and I've been asking, like, what does that mean? And she's like, well, it just means everybody likes you. I'm like, well, I think that if we can teach our kids that the most popular kids are the ones that care about what everybody thinks in a good way, as in, like, how are you doing? Like, not cares what they think about them personally, but cares how they're doing. I said that is how you really get popular, because people care what you think when they think you care. So I think also for parents that have younger kids, that can be something that can be helpful to instill in them now, is if you can teach them to care about other kids. I think a lot of confidence comes from that too, because it just naturally happens. When you care about others, they also will start. It's just a breathe.
Almost like you reap what you sow?
Exactly. It's almost like a biblical principle.
Wow.
Okay, so we just have 3 more. I know we're
we're going to go through them all. You go.
Let's go.
I know
Go,
you
girl.
guys are just dropping so many golden nuggets here. Okay, there's more things you could say back in the day that we can't get away with.
Back in the day.
Back
That's an
in the
old
day.
soul
That's
right
for
there.
you guys, not me.
Decade.
Ouch.
What day are we talking about?
I know.
Back in the day.
That means PC, right? They're talking about like.
Now listen, I grew up in a world where there was nothing PC, okay? So
Right.
obviously that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a little bit different, but still probably for Kurt. But yeah, we got away with all kinds of stuff in the day.
Something else okay.
So that's true. There are social pressures that are on students today that did not exist in my day, wasn't even considered in my
Right.
day.
Right.
I mean, absolutely true.
Yeah.
So try to argue that point with a kid, you might as well just listen, defer to what they're saying, because what they're saying is correct. It's just, I grew up, but there wasn't a lot of rules.
Yeah.
Even when I was at school, there wasn't a lot of rules. I won't describe what high school was like in the 70s, but believe me, it was a little different than it was now.
Yeah.
Yes. Any thoughts on that one for you, Kurt?
The only thing I think of is that seems weird and different, I guess the better way to say it, is the police involvement at the schools. Like, I can't remember a police officer being at our school, and now they're like assigned. They have a school person, police officer, and I feel like with the things kids are getting arrested for, or at least sitting down with the policeman, like, I just think back to my high school years and my even middle school years. I'm like, some of the stuff we did and said, now I would be like, there'd be a policeman there. Like, it's just a different world, because it's the way that things are reported and who it goes to. It's like, I'm trying to think, like, in school suspension, like what they're expelled for today.
Oh.
Like, if you compare that to when we were younger, it is much more tighter, and I'm not necessarily
Different
saying,
filter, how they filter all that
Yes.
information, the statements.
Yeah.
Now that gets you in trouble. Now that gets you kicked out of school. Now
Really
that
in trouble.
and we're
Yeah.
like, huh?
you
Yeah.
get a record for it,
Yeah.
And don't hear I'm saying that it's all like incorrect. I think, bullying should be taken seriously, for example.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that's like one big difference to the
Totally.
question. It's like there's things we could have said back then that we would have had a police officer in front of us
Right.
in now today's
Yeah, I mean,
age.
Well, yeah, for just saying it.
Yeah.
Again, I know this sounds crazy and insane, and I've said it before in staff circles, but I went to school when you could bring a gun to school. It was no big deal.
I
wild.
also-
Rural Oregon. My demonstration speech as a sophomore in high school was cleaning a shotgun in class.
Wow.
I took it on the
That's crazy
bus,
times.
walked it down the hall.
Yeah.
It was no big deal. But we didn't associate guns with anything evil.
Right.
We were a bunch of rural kids. We all had guns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no association with anything bad about it. See? And cultures change.
Yes.
It's radically changed. And so I'm not advocating that we should go back to that. I am saying that how
Different.
crazy
Yeah.
the world is.
Yeah.
Crazy different.
This could be something for a different time, but I will say I don't think school is super boy friendly anymore. Like, Everly has a little friend that we had a moment a couple weeks ago. He tackled her, didn't get hurt or anything. They were playing. I'm sure she was, typical boy girl stuff. He got suspended for a day. She wasn't even hurt, and it's just kind
And they were
of
just playing.
exactly what you're talking about. And now they're not allowed to do chase. That's
Yeah.
a rule at this school. They
Yeah.
can't chase. I know you can't do fake guns. It's just
Yeah.
like that's almost like a staple for little
Sure.
boys. Like it's running, chasing, playing. I know we're talking about teens here,
I know.
but same thing. Boys trash talk, and
Yeah.
sure, there's a limit. But I totally hear what this kid is saying, whether it's boy or girl. But I can sense that schools aren't as boy friendly as maybe they were back in the day. So, okay, I wish they knew that when you came back from school with an attitude, it's not their fault, it's other people at school and you're just having a rough day. And then the last one, I'm going to say it goes with this. It says it's more stressful than they think. Things have changed since they've been a kid if they can learn a little bit.
I mean, come on, that sums up the whole
I know.
conversation.
Right
that's
there.
why I
You're
said
right.
for
A little
last.
bit. It's
Learn
stressful.
a little bit. Yeah.
That's a great concluding question,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, not even, it's a statement. I think even if we don't have anything to say on something specific, just listening to what the kids of today are telling us, it's so valuable.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I think sometimes as a parent, I know we need to wrap this up, and I'm gonna say something, then let you have the final word here, Kurt. But I love the statement from the student. If they would learn a little bit, and I know we've already said it, but if parents could just really do that, the student's not wrong. And if a parent's listening to this, the student's not wrong asking you to learn a little bit. So what would make you push back as a parent to not want to learn their world? So Now the pastor in me says, come on parents, it's time for you to grow, not just your kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my final word. That occurred.
No, I guess I would just say, again, great conversation. I think, what we strive to do in student ministry, again, imperfectly, because we're a team of imperfect adults and leaders, is to just be a member of your team. If you're a parent, a coach listening, a teacher, again, I've shifted in 20 years. We're not the end-all, be-all.
Right.
As a young, naive 17, 20-year-old, I thought, just get them to youth group and we'll fix all the things, right? Well, like parents, probably some of you have that same kind of concept, but I just think God's will and our desire is to be a team that together we raise these kids up in Christ, in the town and in culture and all the things they're facing, but we're striving to be a member of the team,
Right.
to help daughters, to help
Right.
sons, to help parents, to be a resource. I think we're always better together, us
Yep.
seeking to learn what are the pressures of parents, how do we reinforce you when parents are being talked negatively about at youth group.
Right.
Like, as youth workers, are we shaming the parents? Oh, your dad's a terrible person. Or are we believing the best? And maybe
Right.
your dad's going through a tough season, or it's hard, stress to be the breadwinner and all the things. So I think it's just the more adults you have that you trust in your teen's life, the better it's going to be, because we trust each other, we work together, the more we information share. So that's all I know is what we're striving to do at FSM, what we're striving to do as a church is to be partners with parents, with teachers, and man, there's some great partnerships in this town. I mean, Malala has,
It is.
it's not a perfect place, but I think, man, there is so many connections between school and sports and church and government, and I think that's one of our strengths. So the more we play to that, work together, teamwork, the better these kids are going to be in 10, 15 years.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much,
Yeah, Kurt.
Yeah.
Great insight and coming on.
Thanks for being here.
Great
Thanks for
conversation.
working with students here,
Thank you to
in
the
our community.
students that wrote in and shared
Yep.
their hearts. It's awesome.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
has been a good one.
Yes.
So
So if you guys want to find Kurt on social media, you can follow FSM. It's literally just at FSM on Instagram. Malala.
FSM Malala.
Yep. Or Godside Kurt on Instagram. So that's where you can find this little guy over here.
Did you say little guy?
You did.
This little guy. Little guy.
I said this old guy.
old guy.
But little guy, whatever we want to do.
Okay.
Thanks so much for listening. And if you guys have topics or questions, send them to 503-829-5101. And we'll be back next week.
Thanks for joining us.